Gentlemen, you are both drunk on cosmic wine.
Welcome to the show. I'm Dr. Mark Sylvester.
And I'm Dr. Richard Schulman. This is Alt Psych.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 11, Pick Up the Sword. Don't forget today, our very special guest is here, Dr. Miguel Rivera.
Hi, Miguel.
Where is he sitting? Here. Oh, you're in the comfort of your own home. I forgot that. Okay, and the great Dr. Schulman, who needs no introduction.
Live long and prosper.
It was on the beginning of the show, so we know who he is. We are so thrilled to have Dr. Rivera here because we want to talk, I'm a doctor, you're a doctor, you're a doctor. I want to talk about what doctors talk about when they get together. And I could not think of a better person than Dr. Rivera to share his wisdom about what he's learned in his practice and how it's changed him. Because a lot of you know my story and what has happened to my practice and my life and how it's changed me. The way that he does it is just so much more beautiful and I think awe-inspiring.
Well, before we get awe-inspired, I need to find out. Did you start out as a regular psychiatrist? You got trained in in one of those real, learn all the medication kind of schools?
For sure. Yeah, I am, allopathic MD type and then completed a kind of pretty standard psychiatric residency program.
How did you leap from that kind of standard program into the la-la-ville that Dr. Sylvester and I find ourselves in?
Well, it's interesting because, I do get a chance to do a fair bit of public speaking, and I always like to start by saying that, I finished my psychiatry residency with no tools at my disposal to help myself other than to take antidepressants, which I did, to take pills for sleep, which I did. So interestingly, even though I had obtained like a doctorate, and a residency certificate for being a doctor of the mind, I had very few skills to help myself, which is kind of ironic, So luckily for me, 3 days after I finished my residency, I went to for about a week and a half to my teacher's ashrama, and it was right at the beginning of my learning this path of yoga, and I think that is at the point in which my real education as a psychiatrist began.
Well, I used to think that the advantage psychiatrists had over psychologists was they made you guys get some kind of Freudian therapy, but I guess that's in ancient history now.
No, they did that for my school.
They made you do it, or you did it because you wanted to?
It was a requirement for every resident.
Wow, well, good. I'm glad to hear that, because when I was at USF and I was in the Department of Behavioral Medicine and Psychiatry, they actually frowned on it. It was pretty amazing. I don't know what they do now. That was a long time ago.
I went to UF and they probably frown on it now, but when I did my training, which wasn't that long ago, they required every resident to do a longitudinal, undergo psychoanalysis for 4 years. And basically meet, I want to say weekly, I forget how, weekly for the entire time. That was a lot.
Well, anyway, Miguel, it sounds like you went beyond normal psychotherapy.
Well, it's interesting, to say the least. I did do some psychotherapy there with one of the faculty members. And it was not required. It was not a situation like Mark's, you know, where he had to do that for 4 years, but they did encourage it. And I think several of my fellow residents took advantage of that. So I did do it for a short period of time or some months. But you know, the part that really struck me with that was that, at least in my experience, the idea behind therapy was to identify the person's defense mechanisms that would supposedly enlighten them about how is it that you are reacting to your problems, and this is why you're doing it, because you know you're dealing with things in such and such a way, and then to try to move them towards more evolved defenses. But it was still an ego defense, you know. Right. It was to see how your ego was dealing with the current situation of your life, and how could they make your ego stronger, or how could they shift so that you could be better able to deal with things. But it was all within the context of the ego. And
how did you get beyond that?
Well, you know, I think I got beyond that once I really started to study yoga under yogini ecology. Because what I did know was that I didn't like it. You know, what I did know was that I recoiled at having to learn that stuff and having to read about this stuff. I was telling Mark last night when we were talking that I remember during one of our classes, group classes, where I was with the rest of my class, we were going through someone's idea of the way that things are. And I remember just going, but listen, where is the soul? Like, where is the soul in all this? We talk about the ego, but I think we're forgetting the biggest part. And again, I mean, this is like with little baby knowledge.
No, I so resonate with what you're saying, because the first paragraph of my book says in all the years of training, they never mentioned soul once, and psyche actually means soul.
There we go, exactly. So I remember telling them, listen, this is how I see it in my mind. And I said, you know, we are all M&Ms. And even though the outside coding, the ego, the personality may take all different permutations, we are all chocolate.
Oh, I love it.
On the inside. So we need to look for the chocolate, not for ways to feel more comfortable with the fact that I'm green or yellow or brown or whatever it is that your current personality is. Like I had I think inquisitiveness, or kind of perhaps little tiny realization that it was in transcending the ego, that it was in seeking to connect with our chocolate inside, to connect with the wisdom and the love and compassion that we all already have. But we are taught that what we seek is outside of us, you know, like, you know, get an education, get your marriage, you know, your friends, your car, whatever it is that people feel that they need to be fulfilled. And that's where the therapy that I was exposed to and the one that we learned about guided us, was towards how can we improve the comings and goings of your life. And the path of yoga actually, like, you know, Yogini Kalaji calls it, you know, making that U-turn inside, which is just taking kind of responsibility for what is happening out there by trying to begin to become more familiar with what's going on in here.
Well, even the way we study yoga in the society is we think it's exercise and just have to learn the poses and somehow you become enlightened, you know. And my teacher just said, that's just a little bit of it, you know. Like you said, it's a little tiny bit of it, and it really is a journey of the soul. And I honor that. How do you bring this to your patients? Do they know that, you know, they're getting something different when they see you?
Well, you know, it's interesting because I have, like, you know, a couple of different populations or different jobs, because the most of my patients are demented. You know, I have a practice that is mostly dedicated to neurodegenerative disorders. So things like Alzheimer's, Lewy body dementia, Parkinson's, you know, things like that. And with them, you know, many times they don't even know that I am their doctor. But however, I know that my presence is therapeutic. You know, that when I look at them, I see like that brilliance in their eyes. I see the seer in there. Like for example, one day I was at the Pines in the memory unit, and one of my patients was there, and she was in the wheelchair, and I kneeled so that we could see each other eye to eye, and I held her hand. And at that moment, I realized that, you know, she didn't know her name, and she didn't know her family, and she didn't know any of her history, like who she loved or hated, and what were the proud moments and the difficult moments of her life. That was not available to her, but yet she still was, you know, like that I am presence, that awareness that you know, that awareness that you exist without any modifications. I am a man and I am a woman, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I am so-and-so's husband, you know, like thoughts. And as you can see, those thoughts can be lost. But the awareness that we are, it was made known to me, like I recognized it in her. Like, even though the personality, the ideas of what happened in this life were gone, but the subtle part, the experiencer of all those experiences, the power that sees, the power that tastes, the power that thinks, even though the mind may be broken and you may not remember things, but yet that power is there. And once I saw it, I never forgot it. Then it was like always there. So when I see my patients, like remember in Avatar when they say to each other, like, I see you.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, it's like beyond the personality, there is this brilliance, you know, beyond the pair of opposites, beyond the quarreling factions, you know, between good and evil. It's still that brilliance is part of both teams, you know.
Well, and we spoke about the duality of nature and pairing of the opposites. And you had told me that you wrote something for one of your depressed patients, or, you know, out of the experience with trying to manage his depression. Do you mind reading it for us now?
The Pick Up the Sword or the Duality one?
No, the duality, since we were talking about the duality of nature.
Certainly.
There.
Yeah, so, you know, just to give a little bit of context, so this is a person who was having a lot of difficulties with the protests, and you know, that was bringing up in her different types of feelings and emotions, from feeling angry to feeling depressed, and, you know, feeling this incredible sense of injustice that was kind of permeating our society. So in the hopes of alleviating that, because like when I heard her speak, the thoughts that came into my mind were, if she could only understand that the confusion, the injustice, the unsettledness already exists within her, and this situation is giving her an opportunity to experience it. That's a big difference from thinking that you feel the way you do because there's a particular situation at hand. as opposed to think that the situation at hand is just showing you what's inside of you. So on that note, so this is called duality. So how can we avoid, eradicate, or eliminate hatred, injustice, and depravity? If we appreciate love, fairness, and morality, then we must accept them all. Heads and tails are two sides of a single coin, two sides of one whole, same substance, different vibration. Hot and cold can be seen as polar opposites, yet they are both temperature. Where does cold end and hot begin? Hot is just a higher state of vibration, and cold is a lower state of vibration. Everything is a spectrum. There are no clear boundaries. There's only temperature. Extremes converge. The two sides are really one reality, one coin, one temperature. Regardless whether it's heads or tails, it is still a coin. Regardless whether hot or cold, it is still temperature. So love and hate are two sides of emotion. Accept them both, we must. Same nature, they're both emotions, but different vibration. Right and wrong, good and evil, same substance, different vibration. But I question, what power brings love and hate, good and evil into being? What power manifests the light and the darkness? Can there be one without the other? I understand more what Patanjali, the Indian sage, meant when he said, undisturbed calmness of mind is attained by cultivating friendliness towards the happy, compassion for the unhappy, delight in the virtuous, and indifference towards the wicked. We must accept that there are two sides to everything. And if our situation requires it, then we can make our choice, but hopefully not as a personal or ego endeavor, where we are driven by thoughts of separation, individuality, injustice, fear, desire, or anger, but from a universal or soul perspective, when we are driven by thoughts of unity, connection, compassion, courage, and faith. Because we understand duality, we can embrace it. Extremes converge. The sides of duality, the past and the future, lead us into the now, to this very moment, with complete and unconditional acceptance, non-judgment and trust, and full-on devotion for the undescribable miracle that it is. The seer, the seeing, and the seen are one. We are the miracle of the now. All of it, our inside world and the outside world, manifest in the now, in this very moment of experience. Inside and outside are part of the manifestation of this moment. They do not stand on their own. The now is the inside. The now is the outside. The manifested world and the one who perceives it are one eternal now. I am the inside. I am the outside. I am that. And that I am.
I just love that. I just love that.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Absolutely great.
Because it sort of reminds me of yin yang and the balancing of the universe and creating these opposites and as an obligatory connection of their unique traits. You know, that one would balance the other out. Makes perfect sense, you know, when you think of symmetry.
So, you know, Mark, like a really simple way of looking at it is that, you know, the duality is so inherent even in the fact that after the day comes the night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, And can you imagine if we would just, at sunset start getting upset and angry because the night is coming? We just turn on a light. We turn on a light.
Dire Straits wrote a good song about this too. Why worry?
That's it. So if you know the nighttime is coming, then you turn on the light. You stay home. You whatever it is that you do, and you also know that after the night comes the day, and after the day comes the night. And Newton's third law of physics is that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So for every situation that happens in our life, we have that choice, that we can concentrate on what's bad, or we can concentrate on what's good. Because our laws of physics tell us that anything that happens has positive and negative effects. So whether it's well-intentioned or not, this is kind of where we are. And to be open, like that quote from the Buddha that says, pain is certain, but suffering is optional. So
I'm very comforted by what you say, because with so much darkness in the world right now, I'm happy to know there's a whole bunch of light ready to show up. And I'm reminded of what I studied with a Buddhist scholar for a couple of years, and he said, he was Tibetan, and he said, should I be mad at the Chinese for kicking me out of my country? He said, thanks to the Chinese, Tibetan Buddhism is all over the world. Why would I be mad at them?
Exactly. Yeah, I think as we grow older, I think that realization kind of deepens, at least in my own experience. I can look back and look at the times that were particularly difficult and challenging. And I can see how instrumental those times were for me to be where I am right now, without going through those struggles, without experiencing that, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't, have the degree of comfort that I have with myself. And how is it that comfort that I have with myself reflects on my perceptions of the world? Because, the Buddha also said, I have the quote here, we are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world.
Yeah, I think I told you about my daughter's book. We bought it for, I think, the 4-year-old, called Maybe, and it has a very Buddhist undertone. At first she's really excited because she's riding bikes with her friends type of thing, and then her bike gets stolen, and they all say, oh, that's horrible, and then the little girl says maybe, and then it turns out her parents felt so bad they bought her a brand new bike, and then they said, hey, that's awesome, you got a brand new bike, no fair. And she said maybe, but then she fell off the bike and broke her arm. And then they said, oh, you got a broken arm, that's awful. She said maybe, but she got to stay home and eat ice cream all day and stay out of school. So they're like, oh, you're so lucky. And it just kept going on at a childhood level of events that frequently occur, showing, that non-attachment or the non-judgment value to an event that may feel at first bad, or may feel at first even good. And it turned out it's none of that. That was your reaction. That was your value to it. It was your interpretation, almost like a piece of art. Mm-hmm. One person could look at it and love it, or one person could look at it and hate it,
Yeah, we tend to not look at the long game in this culture.
Yeah. Well, something else I wanted to ask you about was the satsangha. Mm-hmm. Because I thought that was a really interesting principle that I couldn't explain, that you tried to explain to me. So dumb it down for me and maybe the viewers. I don't know. They might need.
Hey, do not underestimate the savviness of your audience.
Exactly.
They are your reflection.
They're gonna leave me some comments.
Satsanga, so sat, by the way, this is it. We're doing it right now.
That's why I'm plugging it. That's why I'm plugging it.
Yeah, this is it. We are doing it right now. So sat means truth, and sanga, community, gathering. So when we get together to discuss, what kind of these higher concepts, whatever our perception of truth is, whenever we come together to be of help and service to each other, to share on the things that have helped us, when we are there in emotional or in presence support for others, then we are in satsanga. And this is where it's an opportunity to come together and to share that which works and to be of support. And it would be like the opposite of just kind of getting together and gossiping about somebody, or getting together to talk about how bad it is. So it would not be that. It would be more to, how can we encourage each other to kind of take the high road?
Well, one is raising vibration, right? And the other one is lowering it.
You got it. Yeah, it's picking themes and topics that are uplifting and things.
But it has a very intimate feeling, as if you could almost wrap yourself in that energy and that feeling when you're having that moment and that experience and that shared vibration with one person, or a rock concert, where everybody's focused on one person. I mean, you could have satsanga in that context as well, where people are kind of coming together as one.
I would appreciate your comment on an idea. I believe that at this point in time in history, we're either ascending or descending, that there's no way to stay the same. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that is, it is in agreement with, what yoga philosophy is. I think that everything is in a constant state of flux, yet everything is perfectly balanced. Everything is like just how it should be. And the unbalance or imbalance comes when we are somehow in disagreement with that. When we think that things ought to be better or different than they are. And I think that Mark's children's book example is great about somebody who has that level of detachment. And, they're not results driven, but they're process driven. It's that process of accepting whatever comes without putting a label on it and saying, well, this is good or this is bad, but this is just my experience, and that way you can take the happiness and the sadness, you can take the joy and the sorrow, you can take the love and the hate, and see them as passing, see them as manifestation. But the one thing that remains is your peace of mind, your inner state, your equanimity of mind. So as the day turns into the night, and as the new bike turns into the broken bone, there is that witnessing capacity, that seer inside, that, if you're happy and it, clap your hands. Like, who knows? You're happy, but then it. Happy, temporary emotions, comes and goes, and it. the soul, the ultimate witness, the experiencer, even when you don't have any thoughts that tell you who you are. And let me interject real quick, because you brought this point of people being focused. And that is so important. You know, I just gave a talk on attention. And what it is so important to realize is that this really is the key. Because it is only that which we pay attention to that becomes real to us. Like we have all had the experience of making it home and have no idea how we got there. We drove for half an hour and everything is like a blur. We didn't pick up anything of what we saw because our consciousness needs to nab that. And that is the process of attention. The focusing of the awareness. And, you know, they did a study that was published in Science in 2010. And the name of the study was "A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind." Like you can Google it, "Wandering Mind is Unhappy Mind," and you will find the study there. And what they did was that they gave people iPhones and they called them several times a day and they asked them, what are you doing? How are you feeling? And what are you thinking about? And what they found was that people spent more than 50% of their time thinking about things other than they were doing. So basically being distracted. And what is it that distracts you? The mind. And what in the mind is it that distracts you? The brain default network. So we have certain areas of the brain that come together when we are focused, when we are paying attention. And when that happens, it is when we feel the best. What the study found was that as soon as we stop paying attention, the brain default network kicks in. And what does the brain default network do? It provides you with autobiographical information. It presents you with images about the past. And it also, you know, oh, such and such a girlfriend may come up or some kind of traumatic situation. But things that come from the past, which cement our idea that we are this personality. The past is only a thought form. It is only a thought. What they found in the study was that every time that we get distracted, we feel worse. And it doesn't matter if we are distracted by neutral things, like I gotta go to the grocery store or whatever. The act of losing our attention is associated with higher incidence of anxiety and depression. So what they found in this study is that the quality of your thoughts, the strength of your attention are more important for happiness than the things that are happening to you in your life.
Yeah, Tony Robbins says something similar, but in different language. And I think that it's touching on a genius part of neurobiology and behavior and our sense of well-being. And I know we're running a little bit late. We're gonna have to let the affiliates know that we might be running late. But tell me the part about me being a manifestation of God. Those were your words.
That was your mom, Mark.
That was your words, sir.
Wasn't that your mom saying that? I didn't realize Miguel said it.
I made him repeat it and I recorded it, but it's not what you
So listen, so let me answer that by beginning with a story. So there was this fellow, which, you know, presumably this took place in India. And he had been meditating, you know, for many, many months on the mantra that his teacher had given him, you know, Om Namah Shivaya, you know, I am, you know, Shiva Hung, actually, Shiva Hung, I am Shiva. And he eventually had that realization inside, you know, like, wow, I mean, this power that I'm praying to lives within. this is in me. I am Shiva. And he's like, he's like, wow, I got to go tell my teacher, and he's so full inside of this divinity that he has found within. And he begins to walk towards his teacher's abode. And then on the way there, he sees that there is an elephant coming. And he says, well, I am Shiva, I am God, and the elephant is God. So should God get out of the way of God? And in the meantime, the driver of the elephant is going, dude, hello, get out of the way. And he's kind of wrapped up in his mind, well, should God get out of the way of God? So while he's in those digressions, the elephant takes him and flings him out with his trunk, and he falls by this wayside, and he's like all this mess, and he's upset, and oh my God, he goes to the teacher and says, I was doing your meditation, what you taught me, and then I'm coming here to tell you about it, and I'm thinking, well, I am God, and the elephant is God, and he says, why didn't you hear to the voice of God telling you to get the hell out of the way? So I think the idea from the Guru's teaching, is that, for sure, I think that the first step in the statement that I made is always self-realization. It is you kind of finding that little divine spark inside. Because, it's interesting, Mark, there is a concept, again, reverting a little bit to the attention talk, which is called attentional bias. And it's been studied in many different permutations of mental illness, but a really good example is people who are anxious. And so people who are anxious or nervous will enter the world with the fight or flight response already kind of kicked in. So they're already in their own little personal emergency.
Yeah.
And what has been shown is that when these folks get into the world, their subconscious mind is looking for triggers. It's looking for threats. So, and they find them. Their perception of what happens in the world is definitely skewed by the way that they feel, because they are, again, searching for things, unconscious as it might be, that resonate with their own mental state. So all we ever do is we project onto the world what we believe. I think that there was a quote by, I think, and please pardon my butchering her name. I think it's Anais Nin. She said something like this. She said, "We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are."
Yeah.
And so I think that this is both the curse of the world at this moment, but it's also the greatest blessing of the world. And that is that, right now, we see the world in chaos because we are in chaos. But luckily for us, we can change, and we do change. And this is the spiritual path that, whether we realize it or not, we are all embarked upon. Because I think that we all have this spark of divinity inside. We have that which sees and that which experiences, and then we have this default mode network just chattering. And but the more that we begin to perceive this divinity inside, then we reflect that onto the world. So when I see you, Mark, I can't help it but just know that you are part of that which has been manifested for me. You are part of what is real to me. And I know that everything that is real is a manifestation of this one vibration, this one energy, which, by the way, is love. You know, God is love, love is God. The creative power that brings both love and hate, male and female, day and night, good and evil into existence is the energy of our own heart. You know, the greatest creative power lives in us. And to, you know, like, well, how do I get started? You know, just look at your life. Your path already lays under your feet, but we don't see it, you know, like because we are up here with the comings and goings of the mind, that we cannot see it. You know, there is a saying from the Gnostic Gospels that were found in the Dead Sea, called the Dead Sea Scrolls. In the Gospel of Thomas, it says, the kingdom of the Father will not come by expectation. The kingdom of the Father is spread all over the earth, and men just don't see it.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah. So when you see it in yourself, you will see it reflected in everyone and in everything.
Well, if you see this elephant running at you, you better get out of the way too.
You better listen to the driver.
I still outweigh you, but Rich, do we have enough time for another reading for the dual, or for Pick Up the Sword?
Sure, why not? I'm actually hoping Miguel will come back.
Yeah.
I think we have a lot to talk about. It's so nice to meet you, even in this sort of virtual world. I feel like I've met an old friend for the first time.
You know, that's what Mark said. He said that we would definitely, you know, connect. Of course, he takes himself lightly, and he said that you were the deep one, and I think he's deep also. And he said that he was the comic relief, but I think you are also the comic relief.
Oh, well, the only way I get through the day is by laughing at myself repeatedly. So it helps a lot. No, I'm yes, please read your other poem, and please come back.
All right.
Let's finish up with Pick Up the Sword.
Okay.
Written by what great sage wrote this poem, this rap?
Well, I wish I could take responsibility for doing it.
Take it. No one's going to fact check you.
But how it really happened was, I was having some tea, and this was my advice to one of my patients. And I was telling her, you know, pick up the sword, in terms of be the hero of your own life, you know. Pick up your sword and fight for yourself, for that which is good. And one day it was on a Sunday, and I was having a cup of tea with my wife, and all of a sudden I started hearing this, and I just ran to my room and grabbed a writing pad, and I wrote it out as quickly as I could before it left my mind. So
I'm going to give you credit for it. Go on.
So, okay, here it goes. So much suffering, I don't know where to turn. Everywhere I look, someone's getting burned. Helpless and hopeless, how can I go on? Life's a heavy burden, problems are my own. So much loss and inequity, here today and gone tomorrow, such impunity. How can I go forward? I am paralyzed. What can one soul do in a world that's demonized? What is the answer? Who holds the key? Who holds the power that can set us free? Clear my mind, open my heart. This is my question. I beg for your reply. Mind conception, identification, blur the lines of perception. Looking for excuses outside our mind, thinking we're the victims of some evil plan. Hiding from our thoughts, hiding from our fears, afraid of looking in, afraid to see what's here. Blame it on bad luck, the enemy is near. Running after pleasures, we neglect to see what's here. Get off the floor, wipe off your face, pick up the sword, no time to waste. Open the mind to your creation, the only limit is your imagination. Every situation is our own reflection, a clear evocation of our own vibration. All of the demons are in our mind. Pick up the sword. It's time to fight. Love is the sword. Plunge it deep into the fear. Rise, mighty warrior. The time to fight is here. Know thyself. To thine own self be true. There's no greater ally than to live your truth. Embrace it all. The smile and the frown. The left and the right. The up and the down. Feel in your heart the mighty vibration that brings both into manifestation. Open your heart, love your sister and your brother, the cows, the pigs, and all the others. Love is the weapon, love is the key, love is the power that will set us free.
Thank you, Dr. Miguel Rivera.
Well, thank you for having me.
For joining us. We will do this again. Absolutely. Everyone, please leave comments below. Nice or nasty. We appreciate them all.
We like nice better, though.
We do like nice a little better. And stay tuned next week for our very special guest, who I'm also not going to say because it's not confirmed. But I've talked about her before, so we hope to see Alyssa Benson on next week. Until then,
be well. We were close.
And satsangha.
And thank you again, Miguel.
Thank you much, Rich. It's really nice to meet you. And
man.
You too,
Hope
Marcus.
we'll connect real soon.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.